If it's on TV and it's Star Wars, it's got to be the number one watched thing on television. It's got to be above number one. It's got to have its own category. I mean, it's Star Wars. It's got to be at the very top. It can't be number two. It can't be number three. It can't be at the bottom of the list. If so, Star Wars is dead. But is all this true? Let's look at the history of Star Wars on television and see how good they did. Welcome back to the Junk Room, everybody. It's me, the Junkman, coming back at yes, you with another video today. We're going to talk, I guess, to those Phantom Menace guys. I don't know if I really like that. Don't hear the term much anymore, but I'm keeping it alive, But I was on a live stream last night, and I heard this guy say something, and I've heard it said a lot. I've seen it said on Twitter and other YouTube channels that, hey, The Mandalorian was only number 5 in the ratings this week. And people were saying that means Star Wars is dead. It's tanked. Disney's in a panic. They're going to cancel their ship 5 out of what, 100 plus shows. It was number 5. And I've seen it said, a guy and some others, they said, well, it's Star Wars. It's got to be at the top. It's got to be the most watched thing of the week. It's Star Wars. You know, yes, when Star Wars is released as a movie, it is the number 1 movie at the box office, and most of the time, the number 1 of the year. Although Attack of the Clones was number 2 for the whole year. Spider-Man beat it. But there's this myth that if Star Wars is on television, it's got to be the most watched thing ever. It can't be number 2. It can't be surely number 5. It's number 5. It's panic mode. Everyone's dying. It's horrible. But let's look at the history of Star Wars on the small screen, even back in the heyday of the original trilogy. Did it do good on television? Well, before we get into that, I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Here's a guy over at the network base. Here's a guy over at Echo Base. A great website. They kind of, they Phantom Menace, they say, but they kind of get both sides. They let the other side speak. It's not like some of the others. I'm talking to you, Geek the Gamer Kid. But check it out.
To me, when it goes to Star Wars, number 5 in the Nielsen's is no bueno. This is Star Wars. It has always been, at least with George, even when it wasn't that great with the first 3 episodes, it at least started off at the top and stayed at the top for longer. Not number 5, and even the prior shows. They started off higher than where they're at now.
So there we go. Star Wars. I expect it's got to be number 1. It's got to be the big. Well, I was going to pull some numbers and talk about them, and I didn't want you to say, Junk, man, you're making those numbers up in your head. There's no way it wasn't number 1 show of the week. So let's pull up this website, though. I'm just not just making up numbers here. Okay, you're going to see this out of my face while I read, sorry. Okay, let's start out with the first thing that comes to Star Wars on television. You think it's the holiday special, but it's not. We're talking the making of Star Wars. Now, I don't know about you. This thing was hyped up. Yeah, I was little, but I remember this thing being hyped up. I remember, was it Ben Burr's show hit something with a piece of metal on some power lines to make the laser sound, and every kid I know was going to school, pew, 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 making their own laser sound. Well, not every kid. Every cool kid. So it was hyped up. So ABC was going to air this, and saying right here that they were charging, $175,000 per minute for a commercial, while the others, the normal rate was $140,000. So ABC knew this was 1977. We're right in the middle of Star Wars hype. And we're getting to see Star Wars. No one can see Star Wars at home on video cassette. So you're going to get a lot of eyes on that. So let's see here. Over on NBC, they were showing Washington Behind the Closed Door with Jason Robards and Cliff Robertson. Ooh, that sounds exciting. Now, it doesn't say what number it came in here, but NBC, who was showing the miniseries, won that night in the Nielsen ratings. And the special didn't perform as ABC hoped. So there we go. Pop. It wasn't number 1 of the week. It didn't really do that good. Let's move on to the holiday special. I know you're thinking, Junkman, the holiday special is garbage. Well, put yourself in the Star Wars fan shoes back then. You didn't know it was garbage. You saw some commercials. You're probably like, that's not my Star Wars. I mean, that's probably the first time anyone ever said the phrase, not my Luke Skywalker. But it was hyped up. It was exciting. Variety shows were hit at this time. So it wasn't like somebody said, variety show, yuck. So you had Star Wars fever. I mean, we're talking 1978 here. Longing for Star Wars. So let's see what it did when it aired on CBS. It aired on February 17th, 1978, between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So let's see. Let's go on and see what it did. What do you think? Do you think it got number 1, number 2 for the night? Remember, this was back when people only had 3 TV channels, so when you watch something, you got huge numbers. The Star Wars Holiday Special was not a blockbuster Nielsen rating hit. What? It ranked outside of the top 10 for that week. Out of the top 10. Didn't even make it into the top 10. So, there's another Star Wars on television tank. Now, let's move on to the Ewok movies. Remember those? The Ewok movies here? This is right after Return of the Jedi. It was a huge hit. So, you had Ewoks. Who wouldn't want to sit around and watch the Ewok movie? Well, the first one was called The Ewok Adventure. I know they went back and changed the name since then, but let's look at Ewok Adventure. It aired Sunday night, November 25th, 1984. Between 8 and 10 o'clock. And on the other channels was Murder, She Wrote, The Jeffersons, Alice. And over on NBC, The Vegas Strip War, whatever that is. And it ranked for that week at a strong number 2, 24.9. Only behind another television movie called Final Vision, which did pretty good. There you go. There you go. But still wasn't number 1. Still wasn't the greatest rated thing ever. It came in number 2. But hey, that's pretty good. Let's follow up with the sequel to that and see how it did. This time it was up against a made-for-television movie called Double Take on CBS, and the first installment of a miniseries called Mussolini, The Untold Story. That sounds like some boring crap. And what did the Battle of Ewok do? Number 25 for the week. Number 25 for the week. Oh, can you imagine if Mandalorian came in at number 25 for the week? Yeah, the internet would have a heart attack. Let's look at the cartoons. Remember the cartoons? Droids, Ewok cartoon? Well, they got Droids, The Great Heat. Remember that? The Great Heat. On Saturday, September 7th, 1995, ABC premiered Ewoks and Droids, The Adventures of R2-D2 and 3PO. A pair of half-hour cartoons based on Star Wars characters, airing back-to-back from 8 to 9. Produced everything. Airing a 1-hour-long special called The Great Heat, the Droids that is. It premiered prime time Saturday, July 7th, 1986, between 8 and 9. And what did it come in? What did the Droids cartoon come in? The movie? The cartoon movie made for television? What did it come in? Let's see here. It came in number 66 out of 66 shows that week. Dead last. Dead last.
This is Star Wars. It has always been, at least with George, even when it wasn't that great with the first 3 episodes, it at least started off at the top and stayed at the top for longer. Not number 5, and even the prior shows. They started off.
Well, let's go on to Star Wars. The movie itself, when it came to network television or HBO. Now, a lot of people didn't have VHS or VHS, Laserdisc, and all that. So your way to watch something was on HBO or on television. So let's see. HBO 1983. I remember they hyped this thing up so much. I got so excited. Faked a day sick so I could stay home and watch Star Wars. They were showing it all day. They built this thing up so much. And it failed to rank as an HBO top 10 most popular films. Didn't even make it into the top 10.
Prior shows. They started off.
Well, a few years later, CBS aired Star Wars, aka A New Hope. And they hyped this thing up. Man, they really hyped this thing. Me had Mark Hamill come in, do a little intro. They were like, Star Wars on television. Everybody was excited for it. Let's see how it did. It drew in a 25.1 out of 35 rating, coming in 5th for the week. 5th for the week.
Number 5 in the Nielsen's is No Bueno. This is Star Wars. It has always been prior shows. They started off.
In fact, it says here, CBS was forced to give refunds to some of the people buying ads because the ratings were so bad.
Prior shows. They started off.
Well, what about when Empire Strikes Back came to network television? Let's see. That was November 22nd, 1987. And it came in number 32 for the week. 32 for the week with 14.5 ratings.
I guess you could say we're going through a readjustment of expectations.
What about Return of the Jedi? Yep, NBC again, 1989. And it came in 31st place. 31st place.
Prior shows. They started off.
Over a decade later, The Phantom Menace was shown on Fox Television. How did it do? 17th for the week. 17th for the week. Oh, what about the Clone Wars? Well, let's see here. It drew in 8.5 million. It didn't say what it did for the week, but 18 million watched Phantom Menace, 8.5. Now, during the prequel era, VCRs, DVDs, and all that was huge, so I can kind of understand. But you can see it still didn't bust down the chart numbers.
5 in the Nielsen's is no bueno.
Then you have Revenge of the Sith that never aired on network television. That went to basic cable. I don't have the nose numbers there. The Force Awakens did come to ABC. I didn't know they still showed movies on ABC at this time. February 17th, 2019, 2.6 million.
Prior shows, they started off.
Now, as you can see, Star Wars on the small screen has never been a huge success. You know, when you got a movie, not taking anything from Star Wars, but when someone's at a movie, you got what, 4 movies competition right there? It's a lot easier being number one if you're a niche type of movie. But try to be number one on television, especially nowadays when you have the streaming services, you have YouTube, you have so many other distractions. Now, of course, there was Star Wars special effects. I hated the way they titled it, effects. It was a making for Empire. They did a making a Return of the Jedi, but I couldn't find those numbers. But I'm guessing they wasn't number one for the week compared to anything else. But is The Mandalorian in trouble? Is the ratings down compared to the last couple of seasons? Yeah, it's down. Maybe people's tighter with their money. Maybe they were tuning out of paid services. Maybe they turned off Disney Plus. I don't know. Maybe they went woke. Is it doing horrible? Is that panic? Is people running around getting fired? Is Star Wars dead? It came in number 5. Number 5. I don't know how many shows there are, but there's, you know, when it goes into this rating thing, they don't just rank the new shows. I mean, there's old shows on this list. So number 5 out of, let's just say 100 shows. Number 5 is pretty darn good, especially for something that has a niche audience like Star Wars. But hey, as my daughter said, haters gonna hate.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.